everyone, and welcome to PAX Panel Episode 3. This installment of the panel is entitled Examining Cabin Interior Design for the Future. I'm Jane Hobson, editor at PAX Tech Magazine, and today I'm introducing our host and editor-in-chief, Rick Lundstrom, as well as our first ever guest host, Helen Nagel of Aircraft Interiors Middle East, which is also the sponsorship partner for this panel. Today, Rick and Helen and myself will be discussing cabin interiors with three panelists. The experts include Jeremy Hunter, Senior Sales and Marketing Manager at Jamco America, Nigel Good, who is the Director and Designer at Priestman Good, and joining us in a separate video stream, we have Jeffrey O'Neill, the CEO of Zephyr Aerospace. So to get things started, I'll hand it over to Helen Nagel, who will give us an update on Aircraft Interiors Middle East.
Thank you, Jane. Hi everyone. So yes, my name is Helen Nagel. I head up the Aircraft Interiors Middle East exhibition, which will take place next year on the 2nd and 3rd of March in Dubai. My main work for the show is that I work closely with aircraft interior suppliers and ensure that we connect them with the leading airlines in the Manassa region, and therefore enabling them to secure new deals for their latest products and solutions.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane, and thank you, Helen. I'm looking forward to traveling to Dubai next year for the Aircraft Interiors Middle East. I had the privilege of moderating the panel and discussions which covered a number of important topics in in-flight entertainment and connectivity. But now, welcome to our third PAX panel event, where we bring together industry leaders to discuss topics and trends in the waning months of 2020. Our first PAX panel delved into amenity kits and trends, while our second brought in industry experts in food packaging and catering in the COVID-19 world where we live and work. Two of the companies represented here have developed specific programs to address customer desires for safety and for hygiene for the passengers. So first I'm going to start with Jeremy Hunter, Senior Sales and Marketing Manager at Jamco Americas. And what we'd like to get is a rundown on your Project Blue Sky at Jamco. How did you put the program together, and what are some of the elements? It looks like it comes in two parts, is that correct?
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you, PAX, for having me. I think this is a very interesting and very intriguing topic to discuss. For Jamco, yes, we early on in the pandemic, we felt a need, just like many other companies, felt the need to try to contribute to finding ways to improve the cleanliness, the hygiene of the cabin interior. Not that the interior itself is not already in a clean state at the time the pandemic started, because aircraft definitely are very clean. But with the Project Blue Sky, we looked at a variety of areas where we thought we could further improve. And to your point, yeah, it is somewhat in two parts. The major part of the Project Blue Sky really was initiated with our monuments. Jamco has been a long time monument supplier for commercial aircraft, and including the sole supplier for original equipment manufacturer for the 787 for our lavatories and galleys. So we evaluated ways to improve one of the most, I would say for passengers, one of the most concerning places in the aircraft, which is the lavatory. And so we implemented clean initiative concepts that included minimal touch, we'll call it hands-free touch of the handle and the lock of the lavatory. Jamco had already initiated and implemented on the 787 a tab toilet lid means of opening the toilet, which has been well received in the industry and is in service. And then we looked at some other areas such as hand sanitizer stations on the exterior of the lavatory and so forth. Then we also evaluated areas of where the industry is going tomorrow, and other companies have done this as well. We looked at cargo conversion as a means of finding ways to improve revenue streams for the airlines, which were of course suffering with what has transpired in this pandemic. And then we also looked at other products, such as our seating products, where we found that surfaces are a big concern for passengers, and there's a ways in today's with today's technology to find fabrics, coatings, even antimicrobial paints that can be utilized for the trim and finish of the seat products that we provide. So it's, again, very interesting time, and we are just continuing to try to further promote our products for the greater good of the aircraft and the aerospace industry.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for filling us in on that. And Nigel, you have a project, Priestman Good also has a project called Operation Pure Skies. I watched the video of it yesterday. Excellent looking video. Could you please tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah, sure, Rick. I mean, the thing that Priestman Good have really been involved with for the past 20 years is actually developing new products for airlines. So we've been developing cabin interiors, airport solutions, the complete, A to B really. And the thing that we're really concerned about is that we find this is going to be it's a really turning point within the industry. This the pandemic, and I think it's not something that's just going to go away. It's with us for a long time. So and hopefully we can see the end of it. But you know what it's like. Something else will just come around the corner. So we really thought that it's really an opportunity to look at this a bit more long term. Obviously, we've seen lots of immediate responses, but really trying to get to the crux of what the problem is. Also as well, we know how long from previous experience, how long it takes to develop a new product, which, is going to be taking at least 3 years for something completely revolutionary. So from our point of view, we wanted to get the ball rolling, started as quickly as we can, because I think what's the important thing is to start the airlines to think about what their passengers are going to need when things start to turn around. So taking into account this 3 year, this lag, these new products are going to come out just when the market's really buoyant again. And my concern, or our concern, was really that if something doesn't, initiate sooner rather than later, we're going to miss the boat. So we thought we wanted to have a debate and kick-start the industry, really. And we weren't just looking at individual items. We were looking at the economy and business class cabin. And we decided to look at it from not just the single elements, but a more holistic approach. We think that the sort of health and well-being aspect of passengers, what passenger interests are and what their anxieties are not a new thing. We've seen this coming now for a couple of years. So we really wanted to address those parts. So it really looks at straightforward things to sort of how can we make things easier to clean? How can we make things, an awful lot more straightforward? Is it touch-free so that a passenger doesn't necessarily have to touch everything, because obviously they're very, very conscious of that at the moment. So it's really about building up, reassurance for the passenger. So we came up with a whole host of concepts that we presented out there. And if anybody, hasn't seen them, please visit our website to see them. But, it really helps to, we're not going to get it right first time. Nobody is, but it's starting that debate, because this is so important for us all that, we get our industry kick-started again and really moving in the right direction.
Just a little follow-up there. What sort of feedback have you gotten from the industry on all these things? What are you hearing? I guess airlines get a little skittish with new programs or revolutionary things. How are they taking it?
Yeah, the response has been really overwhelming, actually. So it's been great. I mean, obviously, this is not the best economic times for the airlines to be spending big amounts of money on blue sky projects, but this is not really about that. It's about a firm foundation, and I think what we've been looking at are things that are long term, but also things that can happen quite quickly, because the first things that probably are going to happen are new dress covers, new carpets, new curtains, and things like that, which are just replenishment. So from our point of view, we really wanted to do something that could be more immediate, but also more long standing as well.
Thank you. Jeremy, okay, along those same lines, where Nigel was talking about product design, new products coming on stream. In what ways has product design process changed for Jamco in the last year? Do you have a goal to produce a certain number of new products every year? And has that changed in any way?
Well, first of all, I'd say to Nigel's point, one of the things that we also evaluated with our efforts and our concepts was timing. And we actually really tried to find certain concepts that could come to market sooner rather than later, just because of the scenario of the need for enhanced confidence for passengers. Now, the design itself, to your question, ultimately, it's interesting in the aerospace industry. There's a consistency on how design progresses. So with these new concepts, I'd say the biggest change for us is that there was a sense of urgency to get through the brainstorming session, to get to the concept, to try to find solutions on products that we already have in the aircraft in terms of short-term flow, which would be the lavatories and the galleys. And so I was very impressed personally by our corporation as a whole to come up with solutions, I would say, quicker than what we see in the industry typically. Now, with that said, there's also the 3-year period, which Nigel is absolutely correct. There's a flow not only for passenger confidence to regain and a full densification of or having passengers back in seats at a capacity that the airlines need, but that's we're seeing that's going to be relatively a longer I think a longer time than maybe we initially had hoped. But the designs themselves, some of the longer, more how can you say, impactful, taking more design and substantiation to get to market. Those are still in play with Jamco as well, and those we have again the interior components themselves. It has to go through flammability substantiation. Certain aspects or certain concepts have to go through structural substantiation. So the design itself, the process is the same, but I'd say it's more aggressive in this environment for the concepts. Now, the last portion of your question in terms of the number of products, we don't have a given number for what we do. What we have is a balance. We try to have a balanced portfolio of our key commodities, and we have more recently entered the premium class seating sector. But now we find ourselves we have full capabilities from a design and manufacturer to create concepts within our current products, and we've actually considered some concepts that would be brand new that are not necessarily a seat or a galley. We've looked at seat-to-seat dividers and other concepts such as that. So we don't have a given number, but I think that right now I feel comfortable with the balance of how many products we have currently in concept phase and a few that are actually moving into implementation phase. So.
I think it's good news that that how a company's getting into seating, because there never seems to be enough seating companies in the world right now to supply all the demand that normally occurs during I guess when things are not quite as down as they are now. But wait times and how long it takes to get seats to an aircraft has been an issue that's dogged the industry for many years. This is something that's very very welcome to see. One of the things we've been talking to many people in the industry in the past few months who have stressed that the sustainability features and everything that goes with the environment is still very much on the table, despite all the distractions that are taking place otherwise. Nigel, are you hearing that as well? And how is Priestman Good looking at the sustainability issue in this period?
Yeah, well, we actually we were looking at sustainability, particularly in sort of table service, and really last year actually. So that culminated in an exhibition at the Design Museum in London called Get On Board, where we looked at table service, a table food tray and a water refill system. And it's quite scary that effectively, I think in 2017, the 5.7 million tons of cabin waste were generated. So, and a third of that was single-use plastic. So it's an issue, and I think, you know, the public are really on top of this now, and we really need to start to think more about it. So the work that we did, we were looking at trying to be a bit cleverer with the design, looking at sort of the meal tray so that we weren't doubling up of materials. So it was quite lightweight. It had holes in it to take different food air trays and components. And we also were looking at different types of materials as well. So things that are more sustainable. And that has been, you know, received tremendous response, not just from the public, but also from the airlines. And, you know, we've been talking to a number of them for quite some time on this subject. I think for us, I think it's a very deep subject, because what tends to happen, you tend to look at the things on the surface, the things that you come across with the plastic bottle, you know, all the cellophane and things like that you have for wrapping. But there is some inherent problems throughout the whole system and back of house. You know, out of that 5.7 million tons of waste, virtually all of that is incinerated or landfill. You know, even the recycled products, and that's primarily because of contamination issues that when aircraft is traveling to different countries. So it's not a straightforward issue, and all these sort of back of house systems need to be really worked on in place, because otherwise you're just going to be replacing one problem area with another problem area. So we really need, you know, it needs more development, and everything else is working. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. The public are really, you know, desperate for seeing something, and I think we can't let the present situation really hamper that development. So I think it's looking very rosy indeed for the future of that, but it definitely we need to see more investment and more exploration.
Well, there's definitely some regulations coming into at least through the European Union, the European Commission very soon about what to be done with onboard products, and those are still in place, and they do have a lot of airlines very concerned about them still. I was going to ask you too, Jeremy, about regulations on, I guess, sort of on a stateside way. What does regulations play in your product design, and are there more or fewer regulations guiding your decision now? I guess in the last 4 years, a lot of regulations have fell to the wayside, and has this changed much in the way Jamco America works?
Yeah, regarding Jamco America and our products and services, the regulations themselves within the aerospace industry, the FAA and EASA and so forth, and the civil aviation authorities, they have stayed relatively consistent. There has been, in recent years, advisory circulars and some progress made specifically with dynamic testing, with oblique seating and so forth. So there has been some I would say, changes in the regulations, but the foundation remains the same. You know, our flammability approach remains the same, from vertical burn to smoke and heat release. Our structural substantiation, for the most part, remains the same, and so it hasn't changed much in the industry. But what is positive is that we have seen some progress in the dynamic testing sector. Specifically, in the past we've dealt with special conditions, and it looks like we are in in a state that we're going to be able to have more of a consistent regulation on how to properly substantiate oblique seating. So yeah, there's been progress made, but overall the regulations themselves seem to be pretty much consistent throughout my career, actually, in aerospace.
Got a question here that I think I could pose to both of you, actually, that I think would work pretty well. All the touchless features that are being brought up now in this area, maybe I could just ask you both, do you see them as being implemented as a permanent part of air travel from now on? Maybe we could start with Jeremy first and then Nigel.
So thank you, Rick. I gave this a lot of thought personally when we came up with the lavatory, kind of the elbow and forearm approach of a mitigating the touch of hand and fingers after you use the lavatory, for example. Yeah. And it was interesting. I was in a scenario where I was walking into a grocery store months ago in the middle of the pandemic, and I found not only myself but others, if there was a means to open that door in some other way than your hands, then we did that. I did that. And so I think there is definitely each person has their his or her own approach to the pandemic, but percentages wise, I think we're going to see this idea maintain as we move forward. Nigel had mentioned this is not going away, and I absolutely agree. So I think that the implementation, for example, on a lavatory will be something that will be adopted by the passenger and likely accepted by the passengers in general. And what's really interesting with our specific concept is truly if you decided you wanted to, you could touch it with your hand. It's just it gives you an option that you now don't have to. You can utilize your forearm or your elbow and keep your hands clean. And so I think I think it will sustain as the years in coming years if it's implemented by the airlines. Will
Priestman Good be designing more touchless features in the years to come and as you look at a cabin design?
I definitely think so. Yes, I think like Jeremy, I agree totally. That, it's here to stay. I think we've been sort of involved in this events recently now for quite some time. So it's almost becoming muscle memory to be careful on things. So I think that will continue. I mean, from our point of view, we addressed that quite a bit on our Pure Skies concept. And I think one of the things where we need more work doing, and I think we'll see a lot more, where the actual passengers have got more of an ability to control their environment with their own device, with their own mobile phone. So I think in a seated position, to be able to have that option to be able to work the IFE, work your seat, I think that will be quite a sort of revelation. It will give an awful lot of people a lot more confidence and a lot more reassurance. So I see that being quite an important development that hopefully will come fairly soon, and we'll see more of it. But yes, I think it's. I mean, I don't think everybody by any means will be bothered, but I think for the majority of passengers, it will be an important point. I mean, we used to talk quite a lot about within our design world of designing all the various touch points along a passenger journey, all those areas which the passenger interfaces with the company that they're, the airline or the airport. Now I think it's almost like touch-free points of contact. So it's quite interesting how things have changed, and it'll be interesting to see how it progresses even further.
I saw your last, this is the final question that I have here now. I saw your last recent video about the design you did over at Aegean Airways for their, I believe their A320 Neos. Yeah. Maybe you could just say, it's a beautiful video, and it looks like a great looking cabin, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and how some of the recent, the events of the last year have sort of played into how Priestman Good did the design there.
Yeah, I mean, Aegean was a really lovely project that was actually launched this February. So it was a relatively quick program, but it was something that we were very proud of. And it's something that we get involved with a lot. It's not just about major innovations of a cabin or new seats or new whatever. It's really looking at the airline's brand, their corporate identity. And here we were able to really work with Aegean to sort of really understand what they're about, what they're really trying to achieve, and bring out the personality of the airline. And I think it's very important, particularly in sort of days like this, where passengers need reassurance and really need easy, simple communications with the airline. So the work that we were able to do for Aegean was very much, right from the livery on the outside, right to the inside of the aircraft and table service and everything was a level of detail and consistency and sort of sharpness, bringing everything up to date and a certain clarity. And I think that helps a tremendous amount when the airline wants to communicate messages to their passengers, and there's no visual noise, there's no odd things going on, there's no inconsistencies. So I mean, they've been incredibly happy, and we've they were an amazing client, and we really enjoyed working with them. And we do this with a lot of our clients, whether it be Aegean. We did a similar project with WestJet, for instance, where we were able to look at, again, all parts of the design and the corporate identity inside. I mean, it's very important that there's a complete holistic finish and design and brand throughout the whole passenger journey. And I think, again, just reiterating, I think in this particular day and age and times we're living, it helps for clarity's sake, and it's really sort of, very important. But it was a great project, and if anybody hasn't checked it out, please do, because it's really nice. Let's hope they're flying in strength again soon.
I just last thing here. I saw this startup airline, another Dave Nealman airline from like WestJet was, I believe, and it's called Breeze. Has either Jamco or Priestman Good worked with them?
Not yet, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, it's the same here, not yet, but perhaps soon. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that'll be a new look in all those A220s that they're ordering, I guess, which would be kind of interesting to see. But those are the questions I have, and I got Jane and Helen would like to do a couple of follow-ups. So either of you would like to jump in, go ahead.
Helen, let's start with you.
Unmute myself. Yeah, thank you both. One of the questions I think possibly may have been sort of answered. So my first question actually was for Nigel. I just wanted to say, what's the biggest focus for interior design, do you think, right now? Is it physically separating passengers or on new technology which can improve the sanitation of planes?
I think that's a very interesting question. And I think I know it's definitely something the airlines are wrestling with as well. I think we just everybody needs to get those passengers back on the planes, and that's one of the most important things. I think obviously cleanliness and hygiene are really top of everybody's mind. So, and I think the airlines are doing a great job at that. I think. I mean, one of the things that I think we will probably see more of is that maybe dress covers and things may be changed or revamped, hopefully next year, just to sort of freshen the whole cabin up, and that is an opportunity again to communicate to the passenger something new and something is happening. I mean, one of the problems with dividers, they all seem very simple thing in practice to do, but they probably still have to go through all the certification problems and issues, and that could take again up to 18 months, and by which time hopefully we're out of the mire, as it were. So no, I think it's a very interesting program and project rather, and let's hope we can see it all to conclusion.
Thank you. So the second one, Jeremy, I kind of feel like it was sort of touched on, but it was really, sorry, this is for Jeremy. If an airline is interested in your ideas and products, what is the time frame of these design actually getting airborne?
Yeah, very good question. So again, there's a range, but for the concept of the laboratories that we've been discussing with the coordination with ANA, that concept we've already communicated to a variety of potential airlines that are interested, and it's approximately a 2-month scenario for that, just because and it's a shorter flow than maybe what we've seen, typically on longer flow items, and the reason being is because we are, of course, the manufacturer of that monument, so we have all of the ability to substantiate it from a structural standpoint, and then we have all the testing capabilities for climbability that we're moving forward with for those products. So that's one of the shorter flow scenarios, which is good. And then we have other things, as Nigel had mentioned, with trim and finish updates that would take a little bit longer in terms of implementation, substantiation of the coatings and or dress cover materials. And so we could see that happening perhaps in the first quarter, second quarter of next year as we progress. And one other thing quickly I'd like to touch on is that to Nigel's point about cleanliness, for passengers, it's not only the fact that the interior is physically and clean and proven clean by the airlines, but it's the perception of the passenger in terms of the colors and the materials. And so there's things that actually can be done today with if a refresh is needed on a monument or a product to make it look cleaner, then that's something that can be done, and it's less impactful if it's something that you're just utilizing the same material but trying to make it look cleaner. And then the other materials, we've considered for trim and finish updates, such as seats and lavatory interiors. The idea of clean, there's a balance of sterile, if you will, where you don't want it to be perhaps a medical room, but there's a balance of cleanliness that I'm sure Nigel and Priestman Good have really considered a lot in recent months, and so it'll be interesting to see how these interiors adapt and change in the months and years to come to try to promote that cleanliness visually for the passenger, not just the fact that it is clean, but visually they can accept it as clean.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this is just a question for both of you. So Nigel, you can go first. It was, what do you see are the top three airline industry needs in the next 1 to 5 years?
Whoa. I suppose the first one is passengers. That's definitely one that they're going to need very soon. I think for me, I think we can't lose sight that we do. This is an inflection point within the industry. This is something which I think we should be positive about. Trying to see a positive side to this. We're seeing lots of older aircraft that are being put to bed, and the fleets are getting younger, and this is a great opportunity for us to look at more sustainability, for us to look at new products, readdress some of the things that are always problems in the industry. And I think, for us, I think for the industry, it would be a shame to miss that opportunity. So I think I'm rolling that up as a really 1 and 2 and 3, as it were, because I think it's very important that we all collaborate together, because I think that's the thing. It's airline suppliers, designers need to collaborate to come up with better products for the future and build back better, really. And I think it's I see a lot of optimism. Maybe let's hope there's light at the end of the tunnel. But if we can grasp the nettle and come up with something really good between us, I think it's going to be a much brighter future.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jeremy?
Yes, it's interesting. As we all know, passengers drive change, and the pandemic has driven the passengers. And so I do agree. I think this is a great opportunity to take perhaps things that have been thought in past years, but really have come to the forefront. And so in terms of top 3, of course, number one is passengers, but I would say, for the airlines, continue the message, the communication. Passengers have to feel like that these concepts and these things that are being implemented from, sterilizing pre-boarding to the concepts themselves being implemented into the cabin. Passengers have to know this is being done. So I think maximum exposure of communication to the passengers is very important. Visually, when the passengers enter the cabin, I think they need to feel that things have been done, or at minimum that the cabin is fresh and new. And this is happening. To Nigel's point, older aircraft are being retired. There's been some consolidation by airlines to be basically more efficient from an operational standpoint, but they're also moving to newer aircraft. So I think the perception of the passenger, finding ways to accommodate that and make the passengers feel comfortable is probably number two. And I guess for number three, it comes to just trying to hit the touch points. We understand where the passengers go. So just we don't have to reinvent the entire cabin, but if we can focus in on areas of touch and surroundings, maybe that's a balance for those airlines that we know that they're cash restricted at this point. So if we can find ways to start now and implement certain concepts that are financially viable for the airlines to support, then maybe we can move on to the larger ones in the months to come as the passengers come back. So it all comes down to clean and hygiene, but I think the message is being received by everyone in this industry, and I think the good work is being done, and I'm very interested to see on what tomorrow brings in terms of the cabin interior.
Lovely. Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you both.
Awesome. So I do have a follow-up question for you, Nigel. Tell us a little bit about the summer exhibition at the Design Museum, if you can. What did you feature? What kind of feedback did you get?
The actual exhibition was it was actually towards the end of last year and finished in March. So that was the one regarding everything to do with sustainability, really, on board an aircraft. I think that I mentioned that the amount of waste that is created on board is a real problem. So we were trying to sort of come up with ideas that were, really helped us, helped everybody visualize what the future could be and what we could do. We used lots of different materials as well, which was quite interesting. We were using coffee grounds, we were using rice husks, we were using banana leaves, we were using bamboo, a whole range of different types of materials. And we were trying to have a bit of fun as well. So, the cover for the desserts, they would be a wafer, so that things like that. So, and it was just a way of exploring different things, and that's received, a great deal of good responses. One of the things that I think we've got to remember, and when you're looking at these different materials, is that they've got to be they work if they're locally sourced. If we've got to bring over loads of waste bamboo to make bits for European travelers, then it doesn't really make sense. You've got to be using sustainable items that are, if it's waste products that are naturally occurring where you're going to be flying from, or for instance. So, but it's been really, it's been a lot of interest, and what's been quite good about it is that it's started to form a debate outside the aviation industry as well. People were seeing it and saying, oh, perhaps that could happen to us. And, and we're talking to various people about takeaway food and things like that. So there's a tremendous amount happening in this area.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. And now we bring in Jeffrey O'Neill, the CEO of Zephyr Aerospace. So today we're discussing examining cabin interior design for the future. The Zephyr seat is being billed as a safety product because of its design and the way it provides privacy for premium economy. What are the other important features of this seat that the industry should know about?
So I think the most important feature is actually privacy. We've seen a very strong demand for customers in hopefully after COVID passes that will require space and just distance away from other people. Airlines cannot possibly maintain a policy of blocking middle seats in perpetuity. That's not going to be financially viable. So at the same time we focus on privacy, we look at what other upgrades can we do to the real estate where current premium economy class seats occupy. And we found a way to limit any loss of seating density for the airlines, but provide enhanced services and benefits that travelers actually value. And primarily that would be the ability to sleep. Privacy is a bonus, but because the configuration of seats is all in a 1-2-1, but essentially 2-4-2 because there's 2 levels of seating.
So we know that airlines are notoriously pretty shy about being early adopters. Something like this is, I think we would consider it a big commitment because it's so unusual at this point in time, even for a boutique airline. So how do you sell it, if you will, or how do you go about explaining the importance of having a seating configuration such as this one?
Well, I think there's never a perfect time to innovate. It's always an issue of bottom line. How much money do we have? How much are we willing to invest? And what's the ROI? But this is as good a time as any. You know, we've seen negative innovation in commercial air travel in general for probably about 40 years since the end of Pan Am. It's actually gotten worse for economy travelers. And about 12 years ago, premium economy class was a way to give part of that experience back for those who are willing to pay more money. This is just a further enhanced upgrade to move that momentum to the front of the industry now. And there is absolutely no reason why it shouldn't and why it cannot exist. There's essentially unlimited consumer and traveler demand for it. And the product post-COVID will look very similar to what business class looked like when British Airways introduced the first lie flat seat in 1998. That was groundbreaking, but it was still very new. So we hope to become the standard for premium economy class travel. And undoubtedly, a lot of different airline types will find different value in the product based on where they fly, what their current types of travelers are, and also the stage length of their flight. So this is not designed for flights under 7 to 8 hours because there's not a very strong need to sleep. Whereas on flights over 10 to 12 hours, it's actually a physical requirement for some travelers. They actually, you know, the risks are very much there for deep vein thrombosis, as well as, you know, chronic jet lag. So we believe, all things being equal, that airlines will ultimately come around to this realization in the same way they did that premium economy class should exist and that business class should offer what first class did 35 years ago, which was privacy and a bed.
And do you have a manufacturing center for the seat yet, or any kind of regulatory requirements that you have to fulfill? Where is that at?
Well, there are a number of regulatory requirements. The short answer for the manufacturing question is no, we do not. We are in talks with a couple of seat manufacturing companies to partner with us for the future production of these seats. And we're also working with simulated dynamic testing centers that can help us solve a lot of the major issues for the certification. And that's going to be quite a lengthy process, only because there's no precedent for this type of product. The closest thing to this seat that's been certified is actually a crew rest area, which is only certified for in-flight sleep and in-flight use. But this seat, the Zephyr seat, would be certified for TTL, which means taxi, takeoff, and landing. And there's no precedent for that. So there's going to be a lot of new research and development and a lot of new rules and regulations that have to be published and researched by the FAA and EASA in order to move this through the certification process. So it's going to be very challenging, but ultimately we feel that it very much is possible.
Right. And are there any places or events right now where the design is set up for people to see in person?
That's
or
probably
virtually, maybe?
that's the best question I've ever received on this. We had a whole idea to do an international airport roadshow because we do have a physical mock-up. It's unfortunately very heavy, so it's very difficult and expensive to move. But the goal was to position this and display it in prominent conferences that were not necessarily aerospace specific, but where there was a lot of foot traffic and where people would stop when they heard about innovation and economy class seating and look at it and get inside of it and test it. This is very much a physical product. I can explain it to you, I can record a video, but ultimately all I care about and the airlines care about is how you feel inside of it and what your willingness and propensity to pay a premium would be if the product existed in the market today. So we had a whole schedule. CES was going to be a big one, the New York Times Travel Show in New York in January, as well as the Hamburg show, which I attended last year in 2019, but we were going to do a follow-on round this year with a whole high-fidelity cross-section of a fuselage that was going to be amazing. But unfortunately, we just have to wait. So to any end, we will look for an opportunity to get people inside of it in public areas and spaces where there's a propensity for people to want to travel.
So how do you see this sliding into the post-COVID world as something that would, because there's all of these things that make it relevant no matter what time we're in. So the fact that you obviously can sleep and be comfortable, the fact that it's affordable for everybody. So how do all of these things also translate well into that post-COVID cabin?
So two things are going to be the reality. One is there are going to be fewer flights and air travel is going to be more expensive. Fares are going to be higher. There's no two ways around this. There's going to be fewer people traveling. Airlines have to recover their costs. They have to maintain their business. Fares will increase. Now, initially, they might be very low to encourage and stimulate travel, but long-term, they'll be more expensive. Secondly, you're going to see a huge drop in business class travel, no matter who tells you that's the reality. People have become so familiar with Zoom and virtual meetings that to justify an in-person meeting is going to be very expensive for most companies. And because COVID caused a recession to many parts of the world, a lot of companies are restructuring budgets, and travel budgets are the first thing to be analyzed, which means that if they previously authorized business class travel, they will now be authorizing premium economy class travel. So wouldn't it be great to have a product that companies can actually afford, but be able to offer their travelers a private, safe, COVID-free, lie-flat environment in the same piece of real estate at a lower point?
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I think you shared a lot of really fantastic insights that most people, I think, are dying to hear. So this was excellent. Thank you so much. So this concludes the episode 3 of the PAX panel. Thank you so much to each of our wonderful panelists. We had Jeffrey O'Neill at Zephyr Aerospace, Jeremy Hunter here with us right now from Jamco America, and Nigel Good of Priestman Good. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you so much to Helen Nagel. She was our special guest co-host from Aircraft Interiors Middle East. Thank you so much. All PAX panels are available online, so everyone can watch and share. And we're really looking forward to the next PAX panel. So let us know if you want to get involved. Thanks so much, everyone. See you next time.